welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to talk about skills that you should have or acquire as a PhD student. And this I can talk about after being in ISET for almost 7 years now. For those who are new, I am an integrated PhD student at ISET Trivandrum. Now I am in my final year of PhD, and in this channel I make videos about PhD life, life as a researcher, research as a career, lot of tour videos and also some beautiful vlogs. So please do check them out. And also, most importantly, do share this video and the channel with people who you know are thinking of doing PhD or pursuing PhD already, and whomever you think this might help. Now, without further delay, let's start the video. Obviously, there are many skills that a PhD student should have, but in today's video, I am going to talk about 6 essential skills that a researcher should acquire, namely communication, writing skill, organization, time management, collaboration, and learn how to learn. So now that I have mentioned all the skills, let's talk about them one by one. Starting with communication. When you hear communication, the first thing that comes into your mind is it is a skill of speaking effectively. But I think it's rather diverse. And I am going to talk about 3 facets of communication. First is one-to-one communication. One-to-one communication, for example, your communication with your supervisor, your communication with a research committee, your communication with senior, and in many occasions, your communication with experts. Then there is a communication within a research group or within an audience who are known to your research area and who are expert in your research area. So that group. Then there is a third type of communication, which is a communication to a general audience. An audience who are not aware of your research background, who are working on different kind of things. For example, even in string theory is such a vast community. So not many people are aware of what I do. People who are doing ADS safety are not aware of supergravity or not familiar with the formalism that we use to do things that we do here, and they are not familiar what they are doing. So the communication between these 3 need a different sort of skills. For example, in one-to-one communication, the major part is good listening. So you should be a good listener to have a good communication when you're having a communication with one person. So let the other person complete their sentence. Let the other person make their statement, complete their point of view. Then only you communicate your point of view. What I do is sometimes I record the conversation. If I'm having a conversation about my research with my supervisor or with my senior, just to remember what they said, because sometimes they refer to some theorem or they make some statement that I am not aware of, and I don't want to forget the statement they made, because I might remember at that point, I might understand at that point, but I might forget after some time. So I tend to record it because I find it difficult to make writing notes when I am having one-to-one conversation. But you can make notes while writing if you are comfortable, or you can go for recording. Now let's talk about the communication with a known audience. When I say known audience, I mean the audience who are aware of your field. So when you are presenting your work to experts, then you should go and explain your technical details that you use. You explain your formalism or explain the techniques that you use to obtain the results. However, when you're communicating with a wider audience who are not aware of your research, you should definitely first cover the basics, and as much as possible avoid the technical details that is sometimes it's not appreciated as much as you appreciate it. So try to cover the basic, try to explain the results you obtain, and try to explain the significance of your result rather than the technical details. In PhD, the communication is an essential skill because you will need to communicate your research to a wider audience. That's how you get collaborations. That's how you get people to get interested in your work, and if they know what you do, if they know what kind of skills you have, they might be interested in collaborating with you. And so this is really important. The communication is really important to put forward your thoughts. And I myself faced a lot of issues during my PhD about this communication skill. So I have improved a lot from the day I started. I remember, and I had 7 years. So during my first 2 years, I got a lot of chance to present my work or present some research paper to my supervisor or to a group of physicists who are well aware of the things that I was presenting. And initially I did very poor job, but I think I have improved. If I see my presentations now, I feel that I have improved. I do see that I have a long way to go, but yeah, I'm improving, and I want to say that's a very major part of PhD career. So do put some effort to improve your communication skills. Next in list is writing skill. Writing skill is again an important skill that a PhD student should have or work on having, because you will be writing your research paper where you will be communicating your research, and this is the essential part. That is how the wider audience will reach you. The experts will reach your research, and also to get your paper published, the paper should be well written. So you should doing calculation and analyzing the result is one thing, but communicating the result to wider audience is another skill that you should acquire. For an editor or for a reviewer to understand your paper, the paper should be written very precisely. You should be able to make brief, short and precise statement about your research and communicate them very precisely why your research is important, why your research is worth publishing. So you should do a very vast research survey before you write your paper. So this writing paper is another skill which many students lack. It's like communicating something that you did. So it's a skill that you should have. Now, in the end of your PhD and end of your 5 year, you will be writing a thesis of around 120 pages. So for which you will be needing a lot, everything will be conveyed through your lens. All the things that you studied, all the literature that you have studied, you should be able to communicate. You cannot plagiarize anything. You cannot copy any statement that you read somewhere. So that is another important thing that you should have. If you have read some statement, if you have gone and listened to some talk, or if you have had a conversation with your supervisor or with an expert, you should not be just quoting them. You should be able to write it, the statement that you heard or the things that you learned in your way, in what you think of that statement and how you can make that your own. So that is why the writing skill is very, very important. And try to make an habit. If you are a new PhD student or if you are already doing a PhD, try to make this in habits. Whenever you go and have a conversation, whenever you attend a talk, whenever you read a paper, after closing the paper, after coming out of the conversation, after coming out of the conference, try to write the things that you learned from that in your own words. And try to do it after maybe 2-3 hours, because if you do it when you just come out of the conversation, you might tend to write the exact statement that the person made. So try to avoid that and try to write on your own words, and that's how you make this your habit. Otherwise, there is a unknowingly you can plagiarize, and which is not at all appreciated, and actually it is penalized, and it's a punishable thing. In PhD, you should not be plagiarizing anything. So all the statement that you write in your thesis should be your own perspective. It can be a very known result, but it should be written in your language. It should be your definition. For example, black hole is known for 100 years now, and there are hundreds and thousands and lakhs of definition, but it should be your definition. So it can be similar to it, but you cannot just copy the whole statement from anything. It should be your vision of explaining. Combine the information about the black holes, combine all the definitions of black hole, and try to write it down, a brief, precise definition of your own. So you should be able to do that, and that is the skill that you should acquire and try to practice it as much as possible during your PhD. Now let's talk about organization. Organization is another skill that a PhD student should have. When I say organization, there are multiple ways you can interpret about organization, but for a PhD, let's focus on two aspects. First is research organization, the other part is thought organization. When I say research organization, as I already mentioned, during your 5 years of PhD, you will be reading a lot of research papers, review paper, and some lecture notes. So if you find some derivation important, if you find some technique important, you should always be journaling about the papers you read. So try to maintain this habit of mentioning the papers in an Excel sheet. You should enter the paper or the archive number or in an Excel sheet. So the way I learned this very late through my friend who had started doing it, and he and she, both of them, they started doing it very late, and I've acquired this habit from them. So I want to convey this to you guys so that this helps. So what we do is maintain an Excel sheet where you write the archive number or the JHEP link or the PRB link. Then authors, there is a column of authors. You mention the authors of those papers. Write their abstract. Try to write the abstract in your language so that because abstract can be bigger or smaller, but you write the point that you are interested in. You write the result you are interested in, which is mentioned in the paper. Then write some keywords. And if you have a future idea, or if there is a remark that you want to mention that this is the derivation I'm interested in this paper, mention that too. And if you do this throughout your 5 years of PhD, in the end, when you're writing your thesis, you believe me, this is going to be a cakewalk. Otherwise, in the end, when you're writing your thesis, you're finishing things up, you're finishing your project, you have to submit the thesis in some days, and then you have to find the references that you are going to cite. And it's going to be a terrible job to find and look for the citations, look for the papers that you read, look for the derivation that you want. So this kind of journaling is a very important thing that I think all the students should do. And other way that I used to do before I got to know about this thing is I used to make folders where for every topic I am studying, there will be one folder, and inside that folder there will be 3 subsection or 3 subfolders which has notes. Other folder is called papers and the other folder is called review. So in one folder, I will have all the review papers that I read for the particular topic, and then I have all the papers in a particular folder and all the lecture notes. If lecture notes could be my lecture notes as well that I wrote during my course when I was reading that paper, or it can be lecture notes that I download, scientists that I downloaded from archive. So that's how I used to do. It was also, for me, that was also easier to find. But this also helps a lot because there are few things that you are not going to use for your work. So that, and you find it interesting for future work. So that's how this journaling is helpful. And also you should have this habit of reading at least 1 or 2 new archive paper that come every day. So you should read at least 1 or 2 archive papers. If not the whole paper, right, just read their abstract in little bit of introduction and what they found, their result and their future direction. You don't know, you might get an idea, you might get an idea to do a future work, or if you have some interesting idea, you can go and email them and collaborate with them. So that is the research organization part. And then there is a second part, which is thought organization. And by thought organization, I mean, while you're reading, you find something interesting, or this is when you're listening to some conference talk. Now everything is online available, which is one positive part of COVID, that everything happened online. So all the talks, all the expert talk that I would have missed, or you would have not seen ever, it's now available on YouTube. So you can go and refer to that. And some talks are for 2 hours. So they have explained everything, all the questions that have been asked from general audience or from experts. So it's really helpful going through those talks. So if you're listening to some talk and they're explaining something and you found it very interesting, you should have a notebook or a note in iPad. You can keep it in Google Notes, Evernote, or Apple Good Notes. Have a notebook where you write all those things very precisely, all the statement that you found interesting and that you think could be useful to you. Arrange it properly so that your thoughts are clear. And what also helps is making flow chart. If you find something that you think it connects with something that you are doing or something that you are interested in, try to make a flow chart and put some references that you think this section is related to this paper, and then after this paper they have used this technique to do something this, and I can use to do something like this. So try to get a clearer picture while writing. Just don't, if you can think and picture everything, that is also good, but what helps me is writing it down, making some sort of flow chart, or try to write it down and try to make it a flow chart or a table or something that might help you and that you can refer back to. So that's how you should organize during your PhD. Now let's talk about another skill, which is time management. It is not a PhD related skill, but it is very important for a PhD, as PhD is a single person job. So going away from the time management is very natural, because you are the boss and you are the employee. So you are deciding what you want to do today, and it's a tendency sometimes that you don't want to do the job, and it can screw your time management. So having a routine, I find it's very underrated. So having a routine is extremely important for a PhD, because sometimes you know that you're not going anywhere in the calculation, you're not going anywhere in the analysis or in your data computation or in your lab experiment. But having a routine that you are going to spend this amount of time no matter what, you can just go and stare at the calculation, you can just go and stare at the equation, and you can just go and read about read something else. But going and working, fix an hour that I'm going to work from this hour to this hour every Monday to Friday should be there. Otherwise, there are so many factors that will demotivate you, that will take you away from the path. So having a routine is extremely important. So you should set a routine that this is the time I am going to spend on this thing. Have this time for writing things. As I mentioned earlier, writing skill, having communication skill, or having organization. So you should have a time slot for everything. And also the time management, people say that you should have a to-do list. I am not very comfortable about having a to-do list. What I do is I have a week list, to-do week list. So I do it, so I will set an aim for a week, that within this week I should be able to do this. Or basically mostly I do monthly monthly goal. So if I show you here, right here I have this goal. So I have a goal for August, September, October and November. So yeah, I'm showing you, and I'm revealing something here as well, which I'm not going to talk about. So I have this monthly goal and I work for it with a routine in my head, that I have to spend this from this amount to this amount. Every day I go from 10 to 8 o'clock, I'm there in my office. Of course, I take a break for lunch, and after 8 o'clock I come for dinner, and then I go back and spend from 9 to 10:30 there, where I read papers, or I don't do calculation about my work, but I read some other papers which are useful for my future work maybe. So you should have that, and time management is extremely important if you want to finish your PhD in time. Now let's talk about another important skill, which is collaborative skill or networking skill, or it's social skill, all the skills. This skill is again really important. It helps you widen your horizon about the research in general, not just about the topic that you are working in, but the topic that people are working in. So when you go for conferences, uh, don't protect yourself to even I am a very introvert person, and I did this initially where I won't talk to the people around me during conferences and during schools. But then I started having this my supervisor suggested me, or basically gave me this advice that if you're going for a school or if you're going for a conference, make this point of having a conversation with the people around you. Even the PhD students, ask them what they are working on, ask them what kind of technique they used, and how they tackle when they get stressed, and how they have a relationship with their seniors, with the supervisor, and all about things. So you don't feel alone. Even if you're stressed, you should know that all the PhD students are going through the same procedure. You are not the only one, and then you can ask for the advice. I have met lot of people from my community, from high energy community, only during this conferences and during these schools, because if you're in an institute, it's very unlikely that you will have a bigger group. Now we have a little bigger group, but when I started my PhD, we were just two people, my senior and me, and he left when I was in my third year or second year. He left for his postdoc, and then I was alone in my group as a PhD. Now we have 3 PhD students in our group, but high energy group is very small group, and this is the only place when you get to communicate with other people who are working on a similar fields. So that is the reason that you should talk for to increase your networking. And it is possible that you don't know of some field that you might be interested in, and when you talk to them and they explain that what they are doing, you might find it interesting and you might want to collaborate with them. You might want to work on the project that they are doing, and they might need your skill that you have that will be beneficial for them, or you might need their skill for your project. So you will only get to know when you connect with them, when you talk to them, talk to your seniors. So there is a school workshop called ST4, which I talked about in my previous video. Go check that out, where all the PhDs and postdocs come together and they present the recent theoretical research topics. And that is such an amazing workshop and conference where you get to talk to so many people, and I connected with so many amazing people there. I want some reference. It's so amazing that you know someone who can give you the reference right away. You don't have to search for it. You know that person is an expert in that field, and you just email them. And students usually email back faster than expert professors. So email the student, and if they know you, if you have their WhatsApp number, you can just contact them in WhatsApp. And people in scientific community are mostly very friendly. At least people who I have come across, they are extremely friendly, including my senior. If I need any help, I will just WhatsApp him. He will give me the reference, or he will give me the link of the video that might help me. So those kind of things you should do. You should not isolate yourself from the community, because these are the people who are going to help you in future, if not with your research, with other things like life lessons. You can ask them. There was a panel discussion among all the PhD girls in India, and we talked about all sorts of difficulties we face as a female PhD in India or abroad, and how they deal with it, and what sort of things we should not do to get into the trap, and what kind of things we should do initially to make a statement that this is how I want to pursue as. So those discussions are really important. Also discuss with your juniors. you might learn few things from them because they are in their first year or second year. They're reading more paper than you are reading. If you're a senior PhDs, you are finishing up your work and you're writing your thesis, you don't have much time to read the recent papers. They might be reading some things, and you might get to know a new thing from learn some new things from them. So talk to them. And so many things that I learned. My supervisor told me how to improve my communication skill, my public speaking skill. He told me that I should, while I'm talking or giving presentation, record myself and listen to it. How am I talking? Am I talking too fast? Am I talking too slow? Am I leaving the important informations? So that might calm me down if I've already presented it multiple times to myself or to my friends, and that really helped. So I will, if you're interested, I will talk about the how to improve communication skill in some video. But yeah, so the communication and the collaboration is really important if you want to increase your horizon, because if you're thinking of research after PhD also, the collaboration is really important, because the more you collaborate, the more you have learned new techniques. So you're not restricted to your area, but you have also worked with other people, and it also helps you get recommendations. It helps you show them that you are not you know more technique than just one that is related to your work. And it also shows that you can learn more technique within few months if you have collaborated with other people out of your area, and that you're a good teamwork. And also it shows you can learn about leadership, teamwork, lot of things you can learn from collaboration. So collaboration is one thing which is extremely important during PhD. So do that. Don't restrict yourself to just your group. Try to collaborate with people outside your area. And I did this, and my supervisor was extremely excited, and he appreciated the fact that I went outside the group and collaborated with some other people. Now let's talk about the most important topic or most important skill that a PhD student should have, which you will learn throughout your PhD, through the course of your PhD. This is not something that you can acquire before. You will learn as you go. So, but keep this in mind that you should be having this focus. The thing is how to learn to learn. You should know that how you are going to learn particular thing. Your research might be a specific topic, but you should be learning about other things as well. And the thing is, there are two things that you should focus on. The two things that comes into my mind. First is, you should know when you should stop looking further into citations. So when I'm looking for example, when I'm looking for some derivation or some statement that I didn't understand, what I would usually do is I would go for the citation that has been given, and I would go for the reference and try to learn more about it. Maybe the statement is more clearly written there in that reference. If I don't find that statement clear, and if I found maybe that statement is clear there, but they made some other statement which is not clear to me, I will go into some other reference, and that loop can go on and on and on. So you should know when to stop, and you should know what statement you can just take it as a statement. And then other thing is, you should know which thing you should not glance over. What is the thing that is important for your research that you should not just glance over and move forward. Should know that this is the technique or this is the derivation that is going to be very important throughout my research and in my future, and I should learn this right away and learn it forever, so I don't have to go back and learn again and again, because you will not have this amount of time. So you should know the importance of the things that you will be needing. So I asked my friend the similar question, how do you decide what to leave and what to put your time in? And he gave me this very precise answer, and I'm going to quote him. I don't know if I can quote it. So he told me that you can describe this thing in 3 ways. First is that there are things that everyone in your field knows about, and it's a well-established thing, and that is the thing that you should know. And for that thing, you should go deep and search for it and learn that technique or learn that statement. There is a statement or there is a technique that only your group knows and only people who work on your research area knows about, that technique also you should know. And then there are things that nobody knows, so you should know about that. There are things that you don't know, but you should also know the things that you should know. So that's how you should focus on this thing, that when to stop searching and when not to leave the calculation out. Okay, so I hope I made myself clear, and if you have any question, please put them in the comment section. And if you want to have a conversation, you can DM me on my Instagram. I usually answer all your questions. I do have conversation in my Instagram as well. I reply to the comment section as much as I can, and you have to understand that I'm a final year PhD student and it might take some time to reply. So I hope this helps, and if it does, please subscribe to my channel, share with your friends and people who are interested in research, and yeah, just like, share and subscribe. Till then, bye bye.